8,415. That is the number of tracks that currently exist on the Trackmania 2 LOLMAPS server. This is the story of how I became the first person to complete them all, and how being American gave me the advantage to do so. So on January 4th, 2021, I picked up a game called Trackmania 2 Stadium. After getting a feel for the game in the single player, I go online and look through the server browser. At the top of the list, there always seem to be two servers. A full-speed server, which can be fun, but every map kind of feels the same. Then the other, a server just called LOLMAPS. Now, LOLMAPS are typically gimmicky and luck-based tracks, the kind that usually aren't taken very seriously. However, despite the name, this server was far from just being LOLMAPS. Here you can find tech maps, full-speed maps, khaki maps, grass maps, dirt maps, whatever the heck this thing is, nosebug maps, uber bug maps, maps from other games, underwater maps, maze maps, pipe maps, backwards maps, campaign maps, transitional maps, neo slide maps, and much more. The only real criteria a map must meet to be on the server is 1. It can't crash the server, 2. It's preferred that it doesn't have too many seizure-inducing effects, and 3. It has to be finishable in 30 seconds or less. And pretty much anytime someone says they just made a map, the admins will just happily add it to the server, which explains why they've accumulated over 8,400 maps after running for over 10 years. But this wide variety made for a very interesting server to be a part of. The map pool is shuffled, so you never know what could come next, and you could very easily play a few hundred maps in a row without even seeing a single one get repeated. So after about a year of casually playing on and off, I started to dedicate a little more time to getting better. Most of the maps were fairly simple, but occasionally a pretty hard map would come up. I would usually take these maps as a personal challenge. I think the first map I was really proud to finish was called Insane 01, and I realized that there was no way to really track what maps I had finished or not, so I started writing down the hard maps that I came across, tracking the ones that I had done as well as the ones I couldn't finish. So while the map pool is normally shuffled, there's a way to look at the list of maps and what we call juke the map that will come next. Now, this list only shows the map names, with no previews, so if you don't know the name of the map you're looking for, you're kind of out of luck. But this was a very useful feature to be able to come back to the maps that I couldn't finish before. So every time a map loads up, the timer starts with 4 minutes and 20 seconds. At any point during the match, someone could type /extend, which calls a vote, and if more than 50% of players vote yes, more time gets added. This can only be done up to 2 times during a single map, so it maxes out at 13 minutes. And with some of the harder maps on this server, 13 minutes is nowhere near enough time to get a finish. And that's if you're lucky enough to get 2 extends. What's actually more likely is that people will type /skip, which calls a vote to end the map immediately. One major issue with juking hard maps is that the people you're playing with might not be so happy to have these maps come up. Some people just want to chill out and play something simple, so when some khaki shows up, they are quick to skip. It was clear that I was never going to complete all these maps by playing during busy times, so here's where being an American gave me a big advantage. See, this game is mostly only popular in Europe. Only about 10% of active players are from North America. This means that I can log in at 8 PM my time, which is 4 AM in Europe, and often be the only person on the server, giving me free reign to juke whatever maps I want, with no one to object. So by early 2022, I had knocked out quite a few hard maps, a notable one being A01 but you are tiny and need 900 kph. Check out my video I did on that one to see why it's so hard. I remember coming back to this map for months, getting maybe an hour one day, 20 minutes another day, lots of short sessions, which makes it hard to gauge exactly how long some of these maps took me to finish, but I knew this was definitely the longest I had spent trying to finish a single map. Around the middle of 2022, I found the LOLMAPS Discord server. I had accumulated a list of hard maps that I had finished and decided to share it with everybody. Now, most of these players have been playing here way longer than I had, so they were familiar with a lot of the maps on the list. After a few months of expanding this list, the server owner was impressed by my dedication and reached out to offer me an admin spot on the server. I didn't really know what this would mean at the time, but I just said, alright. I soon noticed that, as an admin, I could extend maps as much as I wanted, with no limits, making it much easier to hunt these maps. I also had access to this advanced list button, so I went to see what that was all about. Side note to the other admins, do not press this button. It takes about 10 minutes to load the advanced list, and the server is basically locked up for those 10 minutes, causing lots of problems. The only time I ever do this is when I'm alone and have already added 10 minutes to the timer. Anyway, so once it loaded up, I was able to see my best times and ranks on each map, as well as the ones I hadn't played at all. This was a big revelation for me. Finally, I could see just how much of the server I had completed. I scrolled through hundreds of pages of about 7,700 maps at the time, and calculated over 4,000 maps that I had finished after almost 2 years of playing. So this gave me an idea. I had already completed most of the hardest maps on the server, so I had a big head start if I wanted to go for 100%. Unfortunately, since it's so difficult to load the advanced list, I had to rely on the shuffle most of the time. So what makes this challenge so difficult is not just that you have to complete so many maps, but you have to do it on a public server, trying to find times to work on the maps that no one else wants to play, and then having your progress be completely hidden for most of the time. It's not even realistically possible to finish by playing casually every every day. You really have to go out of your way to work for it. So on my list of hard maps, there was one map in particular that I kept having nightmares about. There is a notorious series of hard maps just known as average LOLMAPS. I made a video about number 2 recently, but number 10 in this series, also known as Ableist Staircase, was not something I was looking forward to hunting. This is a map that almost everyone avoids like the plague. It's a very simple map. All you have to do is ride a few downhill pipe transfers in a row. Hey, I said it was simple, not easy. I would keep coming back to this one, but I didn't feel like wasting a bunch of time on it yet. So 2022 came to an end, and I still had a long way to go in this challenge. Playing the maps on shuffle was becoming less and less useful, as the more maps you complete, the less likely it is for the next one to be something new. The first half was easy, but the closer you get, the slower you get. So during my night sessions, if I was really lucky, I could play from about 7 p.m. to midnight without a single person coming online. This is when I would make the most progress, but usually what would happen is I would hop on when it was empty, juke Ableist Staircase or something, and then someone would join in 2 minutes later. Now don't worry, I was always a polite admin. I could have very easily just kept extending horrible maps, ruining the experience for those who joined, but I never forced that on people who logged in during my typically private hours. Some of the people that came on became friends of mine, who were fine with playing along with whatever map I was working on at the time, but usually I had to play by the rules until the person left. Sometimes I would even talk to them like, hey, are you getting tired? It's pretty late over there, isn't it? Trying to get them to go to bed. Like, what is this guy doing playing Trackmania at 5 a.m. on a Tuesday? The absolute worst is when I would play with one person for like an hour or two, then he would finally leave, and then before I even had time to juke something, another person joins. I do think I started to have an effect on some people's willingness to play at certain times though. If they were thinking about joining and then saw that I was the one person online at the time, some might have changed their mind to avoid whatever nonsense I was hunting. So by the middle of 2023, I had added over 100 maps to my hard map list, and I was about to get one more. In late August, I had been running low on maps to hunt, so it was finally time to work on the staircase. I was getting about an hour of practice every night, and then finally, after more than 10,000 attempts, I got this run. I actually couldn't believe it. The hardest map on the server was finished. This was by far the biggest hurdle getting in my way, and I was now in the final stretch in reaching my goal. I was confident that I had around 80% of the maps completed at this time. Then, just a few weeks later, in September of 2023, something happened that changed everything. So I had heard rumors of a plugin that would allow you to see your non-ranked maps, and it had just been added to the server. Anyone could now open their personalized list of non-ranked maps. Now, to explain how getting ranked works, all you have to do is land in the top 400 on the local records of a map. Some maps have been around for a long time, so reaching top 400 could be difficult. Others are fairly new, with their leaderboards not even filled up yet. Then there are the hard and khaki maps. Well, once the no rank list was available, I went into overdrive. During off hours, I could line up tons of maps and do a /skip to the next one as soon as I got ranked. I started completing upwards of 50 new maps per day, one day even taking over 100. I wasn't really focused on getting good times, all I cared about was getting on the board. So when the no rank list was added on September 17th, I had 2,009 maps left to complete, and just 2 months later I was down to 13. I've been putting off most of the new hard maps I was discovering while blasting through all the easy ones, but now all that was standing between me and 100% was a short list of 13 maps. I was a little bit reluctant to share this info with the other admins, as some of them half joked about adding some extra hard ones to the server just to slow me down. I started with some of the easier ones first, but I knew that a couple of these were going to be a massive pain. Some examples would be XD, where you have to ride an engine cutoff into a boost, up a wall ride, landing on a wall. Then there's Exordic Hard 5, a ramp into a narrow wall ride with a long drop onto a pipe. And then Cross the Sticks 13, which is just a long series of crazy stunts chained together. But surprisingly, after just a few days, I managed to knock out all but one map. It was November 20th, and all I had left was Le Schwung. Now, a brief recap on this map. If you drive normally, you'll reach 600 speed, but you need at least 632 to complete it, meaning you have to speed drift perfectly to make up the difference. Now, I'm not the greatest speed drift player, so I spent hours doing hundreds of attempts, consistently hitting 610, and then working my way up to the 620s. Every once in a while I'd hit a 629, but it still wasn't enough. I'd been working on this map for months, and I was ready to be done with it. But then, on the 24th of November, I spotted 633 on my speedometer. I had finally schwunged. I opened up my no rank list to find it completely empty. A bit of an anticlimactic victory screen, but I was the first person to ever see 100% on the server. A look at some statistics shows that I had spent a total of 1,549 hours on the server in just under 3 years, which was about 90% of my time in Trackmania overall. I'm not the best player on the server. In fact, just about every other person in the top 20 is better than me. I guess I'm just the most determined. So how do I know that no one else has actually achieved this? Well, you can check pretty quickly on a few maps that only have a single-digit amount of finishers, and narrow down who is on all of them. I've also asked the other high-ranked and most active players where they're at. The next closest would be Mauresh, but even he has admitted that there are about 200 maps that he refuses to hunt, which, as someone who's played every map, I completely understand. It's crazy to think just the wide variety of maps that I made it through. Some of them taking me 5 seconds to finish, others taking me over a year. If I were to do this all over again, with the skills, tools, and knowledge I have now, I could probably do it in under 500 hours. Considering this didn't really become a goal until I'd already put in over 1,000 hours into playing casually, it would go a lot faster if I had the goal right from the start, as well as the no rank list to work with. I do have to say that the 200 hardest maps on the server are way more work to complete than the other 8,200. I ended up converting my list of hard maps into a spreadsheet, marking which ones are harder than others. I didn't talk about many specific maps in this video, but don't worry, that's what this channel is all about. So now what? Well, the server still gains about 10 to 20 new maps per week, so I have to regularly open the no rank list and get right back up to 100%. I've also started branching out to other Trackmania games, but I don't like any of them quite as much as Trackmania 2 Stadium.